For the News and Observer, I'm Dawn Vaughan, Capitol Bureau Chief and host of Under the Dome. You're listening to our latest episode for the week of July 22nd, 2024. This week is a state politics and local politics crossover episode because as we're recording this on Friday afternoon, candidate filing for the Raleigh mayor and council race is closed. So I have Anna Roman on, our Raleigh politics reporter, because all of our listeners, if you don't actually live in Raleigh, you work in Raleigh, and you pay attention to what lawmakers do here, you drive here, you visit here. And Anna knows everything about Raleigh. She's been the Raleigh government reporter for several years now. You might know her as Anna Johnson. To your long timers, she got married earlier this year, and her byline is now Anna Roman. So thanks, Anna, for being on.
Hey, Dawn. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
So the mayor of Raleigh is Mayor Marianne Baldwin. She's been around since 2019. There was a local bill that people might remember was passed to move an election a year, if you remember that Senate debate. Anyway, Baldwin is not running again, so there's going to be a new mayor. And of course, the mayor of Capital City is really tied to the reputation of what the city is. You're sort of the face of the city. And Marianne Baldwin is not going to be in office anymore. So we have mayoral candidates, we have city council candidates. We're going to talk about that, and also changes coming to downtown, like pretty big buildings you've seen or won't see soon. But first, let's get to council. So the last minute filing, weren't any surprises, I guess?
No surprises. The biggest shift that happened was Corey Branch, who is the District C representative. He was going to be one of 6 candidates who was running for Raleigh mayor, and he decided earlier this week he actually was going to drop out of the mayor's race and instead run for his same district seat.
And your story about that showed that, I mean, it's a crowded field now because people thought he wasn't going to run.
Yeah, it's the most crowded of any of the 8 seats that are up. There are 7 candidates, and it's going to be very interesting. But the mayor's race is also very crowded. There's 5 candidates so far, or
Okay.
in total.
So who are they?
So you have Janet Cowell. She's a former Raleigh City Council member, state treasurer, state senator. You also have Terrence Ruth, who ran against Marianne Baldwin. Last time, he got 41% of the vote, so it'll be interesting to see what he does. He's an NC State professor. And then you have some folks who I would say are in the community activist kind of field. You have Paul Fitz. He's a mortgage broker and Republican who ran against Nancy McFarland several years back.
And Baldwin is a Democrat?
Yes.
And then Cowell, who wants to run, is
Yes.
a Democrat? Okay.
And so is Ruth. And then there's Eugene Myrick, who's a community advocate who was really involved with the controversial Shaw University rezoning that happened downtown. And then there's also James Shanussi, is I think how you say his last name. He's a pre-law student who just kind of broke into the scene.
Is anybody really, I mean, I guess Cowell, since she served in state government in the past, is she the highest profile, or not as much, since a lot of people are new to Raleigh and she served, several years ago now?
Yeah, no, I think that'll be interesting to see. Like, I think definitely for long-timers, she's definitely the one who people would be most familiar with, but she hasn't served, I think, since 2016. But she is the Dix Park Conservancy CEO right now, which is a nonprofit that helps raise money for Dix Park, the city of Raleigh's big park there. And she also already has the backing of former mayors Nancy McFarland and Charles Meeker, so she came out of the gate with some endorsements, so I think that'll help for sure.
And Dix Park itself is basically a state and local
crossover.
That was, several years ago now, wasn't the city going to get it for free? And then the legislature was like, no, hold up.
Maybe not.
Ray was governor.
Yeah, it was before when I got here, but it was definitely... it was definitely controversial.
Yeah. So our listeners, if you don't live in Raleigh, but spend time here and haven't been to Dix Park, it's really cool. It's a huge open space, and it's got multiple layers of development in the works. Do you know, where are things now? We know the sunflowers there, dried up.
Yeah, they're all gone.
This summer. But, DHHS is still there.
Yeah, the city actually I think it was just a couple of months ago, are taking over 3 buildings. They just signed over a couple of leases. The Gibson Play Plaza, which is the really big first investment that's happening at Dix Park, is going to open sometime next year. It's going to be this big water plaza, and it's going to be an entrance from Lake Wheeler Road. And then they just renovated a bunch of historic houses where they're going to have an artist in residence. They're adding a lot of public art. There's these really cool giant trolls that are coming next year, which I'm really excited about. And then obviously you have all the big festival, like giant wood palette trolls.
Not real trolls.
Not real trolls, but like art, public art. It'll be interesting.
So before we get to like some of the other like downtown development changes, you mentioned Corey Branch was not going to run for council. Now he is running for council. Has he said why he got in and out?
Yes and no. He said he was one of the very first people to announce that he was going to run for mayor, even before Marianne Baldwin said whether she was going to run for re-election or not. But he has since said that he has had a lot of things change in his life and in the nation and in the country and the city since October. But he did file in July, so it's just very recently. He didn't give specifics about what exactly changed, other than he heard from a lot of constituents that said he would best be used in the city of Raleigh in District C.
Okay, so who else is running for council?
So every single seat on the 8-person board is up. There is only one race that has no contested races. That's Jane Harrison in District D. That's Southwest Raleigh. So she's the incumbent. She's the only candidate. Looks like that'll be fine for her. And then there's 2 at-large members. Stormy Ford and Jonathan Melton are both running again. And then you've got some interesting candidates, some who have run before, like James Bledsoe and Joshua Bradley. Some newcomers are Katie Pate, Reeves Peeler, and then Robert Steele. And Steele is interesting because he is the fiance of one of the people who was killed in the Headingham shooting. And he was really upset with how the city responded, and that was what urged him to run for city council. So that'll be an interesting how that comes into play during the election.
Is he district or at large?
At large.
Is Mitchell Silver still running?
Yes, he is. So that's District A. That is encompassing like Northern Raleigh with North Hills and that sort of thing. Mary Black, who is the incumbent, she is running again along with Whitney Hill. I would say he's part of like this more conservative, kind of unofficial slate that's formed with like Paul Fitz and Whitney Hill, and also
Conservative like Republican or conservative Democrat?
conservative Republican.
Okay. Yeah.
Like Republicans. And then
You
also
just have to say that.
No, I
It's
know, I
not
know.
local government. If everyone's the same party, you mean it within it. Okay.
Yeah, for sure. No, and James Bledsoe are also in that more conservative group. And then Mitchell Silver, yeah, he is running again. He's the city of Raleigh's former planning director, and then he was a parks commissioner in New York. He's very well known around here. He recently came back 2 years ago, and it was all pretty much set he was going to run for some city council seat. So that'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
So this is on y'all. If you're a Raleigh voter, on your ballot in November, like everything else, with president and governor and council of state and our general assembly member. So it's going to be a pretty long ballot.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah. So housing is kind of a perennial issue in Raleigh. Is there anything else up there that's like that people are really concerned about, or is it just they want something new because, Mayor Baldwin was in place for 5 years?
Yeah, no, I think housing is definitely going to be a big part of it. I think transit and transportation is still going to be a big issue. And then when you say housing, I also think it's this very controversial missing middle that's been happening, where they've changed and made it easier for people to build different types of houses. And then also just the general, how are we recovering after the pandemic with the offices and downtown space?
Okay, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about development with housing and changes downtown. And then at the end, our picks for headliner of the week. We'll be right back.
Score more with the college-branded Venmo debit card and earn up to 5% cash back with Venmo Stash. Got paid back? With the Venmo debit card, you can instantly access your balance and spend on what you want, like game day snacks, gear, tickets, and more. The more you do, the more cash back you can earn. Plus, there's no monthly fee or minimum balance. Sign up now at Venmo.com/collegecard. The Venmo MasterCard is issued by the Bancorp Bank N.A. Select schools available. Venmo Stash terms and exclusions apply at venmo.me/stash terms. Max $100 cash back per month.
So good, so good, so good.
New spring arrivals are at Nordstrom Rack stores now. Get ready to save big with up to 60% off Rag & Bone, Marc Jacobs, Free People, and more.
How did I not know Rack has Adidas?
Because there's always something new.
Join the Nordy Club to unlock exclusive discounts, shop new arrivals first, and more. Plus, buy online and pick up at your favorite Rack store for free. Great brands, great prices. That's why you Rack.
You're listening to Under the Dome. I'm Capitol Bureau Chief Dawn Vaughan, here with Raleigh government reporter Anna Roman. Before the break, we were talking about the different issues and candidates in the Raleigh City Council elections, which are going on and affect everybody that lives here and works here, visits here. A lot of those decisions about development, city-owned everything, city programs. We talked about housing. You'd mentioned missing middle. If people don't know what that means, that's town. It's basically not single-family homes, right?
Right. It's everything in between single-family homes and giant apartment complexes. So think of, quads, backyard cottages, townhomes, also some triplexes, but it can include some very small apartment complexes.
Okay. So who haven't we covered yet as far as the different, so Raleigh City Council races, it's a map, and then there's 2 at large. I know local governments are different. I'm just, for people that aren't familiar as much with Raleigh, there's like the, downtown, how many council members?
3, actually,
Okay.
which I can talk about that in a second. There's been some push maybe that downtown should have its own district when they do redistricting after the next census or when the next elections come up. But the city of Raleigh has the mayor, which is elected at large, 2 at-large members, and then there's 5 districts. And this will actually be the last time for the foreseeable future where you'll be voting for everyone. Starting in 2026, they're going to have staggered terms for 4 years. But we haven't talked about District B, which is Northeast Raleigh. Megan Patton is running for re-election, and she's coming against newcomer Jennifer McCollum, who I haven't had a chance of speaking with yet. And then District E, which I know you and I are both very interested in. We not to dox ourselves, but we live in District E, is very interesting. The incumbent is Christina Jones, and then John Sequeira is also running. District E, which is like Northwest Raleigh, is so interesting to me because it has had a different political incumbent for I think the last 4 elections, and they tend to, it's not necessarily they swing on a political pendulum, but they are all very different from each other. So I'll be curious to see if Christina Jones can hang on to her seat. It always seems just to be a very interesting
What's her big issues versus her opponent?
I would say she's a former Raleigh CAC chair. She was very engaged with, for those who don't know, it's Citizen Advisory Councils, which is about community engagement. The city council in 2020 disbanded them, caused a lot of heartburn along some longtime residents, and Christina Jones was one of them who was really upset, and she felt there needed to be more community engagement at the city level, and I think that's been one of her big things that she's pushed for. She also has talked about affordable housing, and she's also been a little reluctant about missing middle. And then John Sequeira, he has kind of come on here, and his big thing is that he was actually in one of the World Trade Centers and 9/11, helped a woman in a wheelchair get down, and he's turned that into a career talking about business consulting and how you can become a hero and a leader in your own right. And so and he's also been focused on community engagement and on development, so it'll be interesting to see how they distinguish from each other moving forward.
So we covered everybody? Mm-hmm. So every council race?
Well, I mean, there's 7 people in District C, but there's a lot of them, but yeah.
How do local government candidates get attention on this type of, do you think, higher up the ballot is going to determine some of them, of how things turn out, or is it kind of just any local government election where there are people that pay very close attention and others that maybe don't, and the sign they pass every day has a bigger impact?
That's a good question. I think this is the second time that the elections have been an even year. It used to be that the municipal election for the city of Raleigh was held in odd numbered years, and they moved it to even numbers. And I think some of the political endorsements from the major parties, even though the city of Raleigh is nonpartisan, made a difference in some of the elections last year or 2 years ago. And so I'm very curious to see now with a presidential race, controversial governor's race, what that is going to mean for these lower ballot issues.
And it is listed partisan for city council and ballots, or no?
It's not, but at least the last time the Wake County Democrats made an endorsement, so I'll be interested to see if they do that again.
That is something that's come up with the local bills at the legislature the past 3 years about making nonpartisan races partisan, and there are people on either side of that, why they think that's helpful or not helpful for governing. One thing that longtime NNO readers know that Anna and I were both local government reporters at the same time for Raleigh and Durham before I moved over to state government. And Durham City Council, Durham County Commissioners would always, gripe every now and then about the General Assembly did this or that, and that's why they're doing something. Do you hear that at City Council and Wake County Commissioners? What do they complain about the General Assembly?
I think they definitely do complain about that. the city's lobbyist, Phil Isley, who is a former Raleigh City Council member, he is there on behalf of Raleigh and Wake County and I think a couple other municipalities. And he says Raleigh cannot do the things that Chapel Hill and even Charlotte and other places can do because all the legislators live here, they drive here, they see when their trash isn't picked up, they read what's in the News Observer, they keep up with what's happening, and so they can't, like, just go hog wild like maybe some of the other municipalities would do.
Oh, yeah. Tell everybody about that whole no right turn on red thing. How did that come about? Because everybody's listening has noticed that was a change this year.
I think that's so interesting that that's been something that's come up. It was done as a pedestrian safety issue. Like if you are looking left to make your right on red, then you maybe aren't looking into the pedestrian crosswalks and people are getting hit. So that was part of the reason why that changed.
What's going on with Red Hat Amphitheater?
Oh, that is such a good question. That is something that's happening. So Red Hat Amphitheater was always meant to be a temporary outdoor amphitheater, but it has become such a beloved part of downtown, and then like musical acts like apparently just like love it. They love performing there with the shimmer wall in the background. And so the Raleigh Convention Center will be expanding to where Red Hat is now, and Red Hat will move a block over and gain about 1,000 seats. But this has been a little controversial because it's going to have to force a closure of part of South Street, which some people in Boylan Heights and then also Heritage Park are a little upset about, and we're worried about how that's going to connect different parts of downtown.
Like that light where you're coming off of 40, like right by Red Hat?
No, not it's like it's no, it's just it's close to that. It's like doesn't get a lot of use, but it's just worried about creating this kind of like island in that part of downtown.
Okay. Let's talk about another building. Well, Raleigh City Hall is demolished, and how soon is that going up? What's it going to look like?
It is, so it's actually the old police, it used to be the City Hall.
Old City Hall.
It's the old City Hall.
City Hall where they meet now. Right next to City Hall.
Yeah, it's like the old police headquarters. Mm-hmm. It's going to be 17 stories, and it's going to be one of two towers. Like eventually they will move everything from City Hall and the other buildings that they lease or own downtown into that. It's going to be a tower. It's going to be very pretty. They're excited about the first floor is going to have this like grand entrance that's very civically minded and connected to Nash Square, which is right there, or at least that's what they say. But so
okay, let's talk about one more building before we get to our picks for headliner of the week. The Creamery building on Glenwood South. Mm-hmm. That's going to be a skyscraper.
Apparently it's going to be one of the tallest building, maybe the tallest building at like 37 stories.
Before we started recording, I was like, is the coffee cup going to still be up there? Well, I learned that's not a coffee cup on top of the creamery. And the angle, if you see it from the street, it looks like a coffee cup, a teacup with a spoon in it. But if you look at different photos, it's actually a butter churn, which makes sense for a place
creamery,
called
sure.
the Creamery. But as far as we know, that's not being moved, right?
I'm going to call and ask and find out because I'm very curious about whether that's going to stay. They've said that some of the facade is going to be remaining, but I'd be curious to see what they say.
All right, well, you can read the NNO, and Anna's reporting on what's going to happen with the coffee butter churn. They could put a really big one on top of the whole skyscraper or make it
That's
neon.
actually the 37th floor. It's just a giant butter churn.
So that would be pretty cool. I mean, Raleigh skyline is kind of, maybe we need some signature shapes. So that's just my idea. That's free. All right, let's get to our picks for headliner of the week. I'm going to go with national politics. Not a lot's happening in state politics this week, which is a good time for a local politics episode. State politics, of course, is the Republican National Convention that happened this past week, just days after former President Trump was, and someone was grazed by a bullet at a rally, and a man at the rally was killed, and the gunman was killed by Secret Service. And so obviously everybody already knows that's major news. And at RNC, of course, North Carolina has a lot of Republicans that are tied to the National Party. And Mark Robinson, the lieutenant governor that's running for governor, spoke during the week. And they had quite the variety of speakers, including the head of the Teamsters, which you don't usually see at RNC. So it'll be interesting to see the changes in the presidential race. So that's my headliner. Anna, what is your headliner for the week?
Maybe like the total opposite of what you said, which is these new dinosaurs that have popped up in downtown. There's like these 3 dinosaur-shaped bushes that have shown up during different parts of downtown, and I just love them, and I think they're fantastic and a great way of making placemaking and encouraging families to explore downtown. That's their purpose, and they're just very cute and fun.
So I haven't seen them in person yet, just pictures. Is it real grass?
So it's like turf, but it's like, but they're in the shape of dinosaurs. There's a T-Rex, a pterodactyl and a triceratops.
And are they tied to dueling dinosaurs?
An unofficial nod is what Downtown Raleigh Alliance said, but yes, there is one very close to the museum.
So everybody, speaking of development, the Dueling Dinosaurs is the new exhibit at Museum of Natural Sciences, which is where the giant globe is, which is across from the, now former Department of Administration building that's being demolished. So where are these AstroTurf dinosaurs?
Yeah, one is on Fayetteville Street near City Plaza, one is in Moore Square, and then one is at Morgan in Fayetteville, very close to the museum.
Wait, City Plaza, so right near the NNO. I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, it's a little bit Exchange Plaza, not City Plaza. Exchange Plaza.
Okay, well, the acorns over here on
we have the acorns.
So the acorn's best, but grass dinosaurs sound pretty cool too. So, all right, this has been a local state politics crossover episode with Anna Roman, our NNO Raleigh City Hall reporter. Thanks for being on.
Thanks for having me.
For the NNO, I'm Dawn Vaughan. We'll talk to you next time.
For more from our politics team, subscribe to the News and Observer at newsobserver.com/subscribe. Follow us on Twitter at Under the Dome and NC Insider, and sign up for our weekly political newsletter, also called Under the Dome, at newsobserver.com/newsletters. Thanks for listening.